Pain heals. Chicks dig scars. Glory lasts forever.
Paige Bueckers loses 10 million viewers. Yes, you heard that correctly. That is not hyperbole. That is not clickbait. That is not spin. Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Appreciate it. As always, hope you're having a fantastic day. Shout out to the 19. Let's dig into this. Paige Bueckers, yes, let me say it again. Paige Bueckers loses 10 million viewers. What am I talking about? How is that possible? Paige Bueckers is the anointed, the appointed, the golden child. She who was Caitlin Clark before the dawn of time, let alone before Caitlin Clark was Caitlin Clark. She is the chosen one long before Buffy Summers. She is the last knee bender. How is this possible? Well, because they've been trying to manufacture Paige as a superstar, and she just doesn't have it. Check this out. Final Four ratings. We have a perfect comparison. This worked out great, so no spin on this one. Although, as you can see, they did it by saying third largest in the last 30 years. What were the first two largest? Oh, they were the last 2 years. But look at this game. UConn with Paige Bueckers was in the Final Four the last 2 years. As you can see, she drew 4.1 million viewers this year. With all that drama about will she win a title? How can she leave UConn without winning a title? What does this mean? The anticipation from the Hatelins who would beat the CCFC over the head with a Paige Bueckers college title. They're still doing it with Angel Reese. It's so embarrassing. And yet 4.1 million, 3.7 million for South Carolina, Texas. So where's the 10 million come from? Well, because UConn drew 14.2 million last year in their Final Four game. What was the difference? Oh, they were playing Iowa and Caitlin Clark. By the way, if you combine these two games and then double that, you will beat the ratings for the Caitlin Clark Iowa UConn Final Four game last year. Yes, 3.1, 4.7, 7.8. We had double that. We get a little over 15, and we beat Caitlin Clark's 14.2 million last year. Of course, we don't beat Caitlin Clark's final from last year against South Carolina. Oh, and the year before, well, we know the Elite Eight is what really kind of exploded Caitlin Clark with that 41-point performance and really put her on the map. Now, obviously, she was popular before that, but that's what sort of exploded it. They had the game against South Carolina, undefeated South Carolina, who was in the title game this year. So they're still, in the last 4 years, have only lost one NCAA tournament game, and that was to Caitlin Clark in Iowa in the 2023 Final Four, which drew 5.5 million viewers, which is what? 1.4 million higher than the 4.1 that Paige just drew, which is about almost 35% off the top of my head. 35% more for Caitlin Clark her junior year. 10 million fewer viewers compared to last year. So why is that? Paige has done everything right. She is the true Great White Hope because she does and says everything the club wants her to do and say. She's a certain kind of dream for them. The problem is she doesn't really play the game any differently. She plays it well. So please understand, this is not about a criticism of Paige Bueckers. None of this is actually. This is, again, the media hype towards it, which is unfair to her. But she has done everything within the narrative to become that girl and simply doesn't have it right now because of she doesn't have the aura, she doesn't have the charisma, and she doesn't have the court performance. She doesn't have the entertaining excitement. And by the way, she got carried in this Final Four game, and that's not a complete knock players have bad games. Caitlin Clark has had bad games, but, and I did another video on this, so you can check that out. I won't go to detail, but they won by 34 points with Paige Bueckers not having a good game against UCLA, who was 34-3. That could never, ever happen with Iowa and Caitlin Clark. She had to be absolutely fantastic all of the time. Yes, Paige Bueckers is a very good basketball player, but she is not different. Again, that is what so many people refuse to understand. Caitlin Clark is a unicorn. Caitlin Clark's original explosion in popularity is because no one had seen a woman play basketball the way she does. No one had seen the effortless. That's the other thing. Don't forget, it's not just her range. Her threes from deep, her logo threes, they look effortless. She is not struggling in any way to get the ball to the basket from that distance. You know, and then you add all the elements of her game and her personality, and it's entertaining. And I talked to a lot of people who have watched these games, and look, that's the other thing. These ratings also have a lot of Caitlin Clark fans who have gone back and said, hey, you know what, I want to check it out. I'm going to support the women's college game. And a lot of them have been finding out, said, you know, there just aren't enough good players. There's no one that really catches me. The games haven't been exciting. And that is, unfortunately, the truth. It's what I've said to a lot of people, that there is going to be change. You can see that with Caitlin Clark. You would see that with the Jordans and the Steph Currys, what would come after them. But it takes some time. You know, it's the 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old girls watching Caitlin Clark who are going to bring the game to that next level. You know, so we're looking at 5, 10 years. We're looking at when those top players in that group get to college, and then the top of that top get to the WNBA, and you're going to see a monumental shift in how the game is played. The entertainment value is going to go up, the excitement's going up, and that's when it's really going to explode. Again, Caitlin is a unicorn, so a lot of people have this expectation of that now that she's playing, now that she's in the WNBA, that the rest of it has magically been lifted up and is that much better. And it isn't. And there just isn't anyone that has that entertainment value and that excitement and that draw, which is why you have seen all season long. And they've gone back and forth, right? Paige started out the season with, it was Paige, and she struggled, well, relatively to what Paige Bueckers can play, how Paige Bueckers can play, she struggled. She wasn't terrible, okay? So please don't look at this as hate or criticism of Paige. It was just she wasn't the Paige everyone was expecting. So then the shift was to Juju Watkins. And I'm back. Sorry about that. I don't know if you could hear it. I actually paused a couple of times because it got, one of those street cleaners has gone by, and those things are loud and they're slow. And I don't know if the mic picked it up, but I couldn't hear myself think. So if I went onto a weird topic and started babbling, I think I lost my train of thought. So anyway, so we're back. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about this because I thought this was, again, you've got them spinning, right? The whole thing is third largest in 30 years. Even though the two largest came in the last 2 years, so it's a significant step back, as if Caitlin Clark doesn't count, which goes, again, last thing I will leave you with, to my point about the WNBA and the CBA. This is another example of the WNBA brass is looking, they're saying, you know what? We're way too dependent on Caitlin Clark. You can see it in these college numbers. I mean, it doesn't get any clearer than UConn was in the Final Four last year, and they drew 14.2 million. UConn was in the Final Four this year, and they drew 4.1 million. 10.1 million fewer viewers, and not 10.1 million fewer viewers over from 100 million viewers, right? This isn't a down year for a Super Bowl. This is an insane number. I mean, this is like what? This is like a 70% drop. That's absolutely wild. So the WNBA should be looking at that. But again, it's just a very clear example of the driving force, the one who moves the needle, the true chosen one, because the chosen one can only come from you. It can only come from the fans. The media doesn't get to select the chosen one. You do. And you've selected very clearly, very loudly that it's Caitlin Clark. And nothing makes that clearer or says it more loudly than the UConn Final Four last year and the UConn Final Four this year. Last year had Caitlin Clark. This year did not. Both years had Paige Bueckers. absolutely wild. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with the final. But again, I think I'm iffy on the final because I do think you're going to get a lot of Clark fans and a lot of hatelins, a lot of Clark haters who are going to tune in to see whether or not Paige gets that title. Because then things are going to get interesting if she does. I can say that. Brace yourselves, Caitlin Clark fans, if Paige Bueckers, it doesn't matter that it's UConn, that she went to a stacked team, that she never could have done this with Iowa. That doesn't matter. You're going to hear about it. I'm going to leave it there. Let me know your thoughts on all this in the comments below. How do you think it affects, do you think the WNBA is paying attention to this, how it might affect the CBA, all that good stuff. You know the drill. Like, comment, subscribe. Really, really do appreciate it. And I will talk to you later.